It's time. All right, there we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode, PFN Daily, your daily NFL news and analysis live show here on youtube.com/Pro Football Network, Pro Football Network News. I'm your host, as always, Cody Rourke, joined alongside by my co-host, Tommy Garrett, the pristine auction bad boy, the fashion icon, Tommy Garrett, with the jean jacket, day 2 in a row with what is the shirt that you're wearing underneath the jean jacket, my friend?
Shout out to Kyle Brand, those guys over at GMFB. Little angry runs, little throwback. We'll see who's going to be the first rookie of this year's class. Will be to get a little angry run shout out in there. But honestly, I can't take full credit for this because honestly, it was just me being lazy. I didn't do laundry last night, and like the first things I was able to find was this t-shirt and jacket. So I just threw them on and tried to look somewhat presentable on camera because it's all shambles on day one.
Well, you know, today is a special day, I guess. I guess there's some sort of big event going on today.
That's what I've been told. Like, I don't know.
The NFL draft in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, just a reminder, tonight, Pro Football Network will be hosting a live draft show hosted by Brett Yaris and Tony Pauline live in studio in New Jersey. Well, not necessarily a studio. There's going to be a live audience there alongside with what they're talking about. And on that broadcast, if you're not watching ESPN or NFL Network, just to let you know, they will be tipping some picks ahead of time. So make sure you tune in a little bit later on today. Obviously, a shout out to our good friend Outlaw2448 says, whoa, we're almost there. Yes, we are. We're living on a prayer. And so are some NFL players in New York today. And also a lot of these players that are on hand at the NFL draft. They're living on a prayer, hoping that they get drafted and that some of their lifelong dreams of making it to the professional level of football become true. And obviously, it's going to be very exciting. And I think also, Tommy, I think it's a great time to remind these broadcasting networks, the stories of these athletes are great. But just because this is a pillar moment in their career, let's not highlight the lowest moment of their lives, whether it be like a tragedy they went through, unless it had something to tie in with that journey. But it's like the networks capitalize off that. And I think it's just, it's one of the things that rubs me wrong every single year.
Not just that, but at least be accurate about it. Like, how many times do we see like Najee Harris last year was like, that's not true. Like, some of these stories, don't get me wrong, I think some of these stories absolutely are worth being highlighted because it literally says like where you can go and where you can go to, like with hard work and with the right skill set, and also being just a genetic freak at that point and just apex of the human species. That helps also. But if you're gonna say some of these stories, at least get it right and don't just embellish it. Like, yeah, I'm kind of with like sometimes I get kind of tired of like seeing like all like the sad stuff that happens about this stuff. I get highlighting the journeys these guys have been about because this is truly like the culmination of a journey, really like the next chapter in their careers and of their lives in general itself too. But yeah, some of these ones are that's all right, enough. Like do we need to go on about this far? Like, do we need to talk about this puppy that got hurt or whatever? Like, no, like I'm okay. Let's just get back to the picks.
It all happened one day on the playground. He fell off the monkey bars and separated his AC joint. And from that moment, he knew he was going to be an NFL athlete. And
then there was this one time at band camp, but I'm not going to finish that story.
Oh, a major shout out. Jan Paul says, who's watching the movie Draft Day? I have not. I will not, because trust us, here at Pro Football Network, our Slack messages have been blown up with hope you guys watch Draft Day here today. Great. I like it. Look, I think Kevin.
I've never seen it. I've never watched it.
I'm just on the standpoint, like, I can't watch it that many times. I can watch it once a year. And I've already watched it leading up to the draft, and I don't need to watch it again. But shout out to
It's not even his best role. Like, it's not even his best role in a movie.
John Dutton, I mean, you know, Dances with Wolves. He's got a lot of – I love Kevin Costner.
It's John Dutton, or you've got to go to Field of Dreams. Like, those are my two favorites for him.
Oh, my gosh. So no Bong Mask. No, absolutely. Don't pull Laramie Tunsil.
No. Hey, but I was going to say, depending on how much that sells for – that might not have been too bad, but it's got to make up for quite a bit of falling on draft day.
Well, I mean, how do you think the NFL feels about that? You know, we know that anything like that, they tend to, you know, be a little bit like strict about. Like, I will tell you this. Okay, I got a buddy who's shooting a documentary on an NFL player, a star NFL player, by the way. And it's just like his story, his upbringing, his journey from, you know, high school ball, Pop Warner, college, undrafted rookie free agent to an NFL star. Yeah. And he's shooting all the footage. And the NFL is like, well, hey, if you're shooting a documentary on this player, we have to have rights to it. And they're like, here's what we'll do. You'll get this, and then we'll take the majority of the revenue from it. And I was like, man, the NFL with that, they are super strict about anything. So I was like, How do these guys get involved in projects that are like personal to them, like passion projects? That to me, I think, is something that's very, very
I mean, I guess it depends with the NFL. Like, if you're using like licensed art, or like you're using like licensed film, then I could see that being an issue. I know MLB has a very similar thing where like they're very strict on who can share videos and things like that. Otherwise, like if you just post like random clips like during games, they'll hit your ass with a DCMA real quickly. I know a lot of content creators who work on the MLB side of things. It's brutal for them. It's one of the biggest issues that MLB has is trying to grow their game without wanting to engage the younger audience. But that's a whole different tangent we can go down. But I can see the NFL being the same way. They're very protective about their own video, and rightfully so. Like, it's their product at the end of the day. But it wasn't like they're the ones that published the video of Laramie Tunsil. Like, I don't think he necessarily wanted that to go out there anyway. Like, technically, he shot that video himself. And you can consider this art at that point. So, I mean, it is what it is. But it's a day that the NFL wishes didn't happen. I'm sure Laramie Tunsil probably doesn't wish it didn't happen. So this is kind of like his way of, look, I'm just going to embrace it at this point. And look, shout out for him. Like, own it. I think it was funny, like what Pat McAfee said, because he was still with the Colts at the time, and he called up the GM and he was like, "Look, Larry Tunsil, have not scouted him at all, but that dude has the greatest set of lungs in human history at that point," because he was saying how he didn't cough or anything. I thought that was just absolutely hilarious analysis on that.
Yeah, protect your iCloud settings there, folks. The cloud, big moments like this is when the cloud gets hacked, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff right there. Going through here, Matthew Nutt says no draft day slander allowed. Outlaw says I don't watch it for Costner, I watch it for Chadwick Boseman. R.I.P. to our good friend Chadwick. Obviously a fantastic actor there, by the way.
Wakanda forever.
They're talking about draft day. Outlaw same. Also, that dummy GM reminds me of Gruden on draft day. That's funny.
Hey, knock on wood if you're with me.
Who has the better trade scene, draft day or Moneyball? This is a good question, Tommy.
Ooh, given I've never seen
draft day,
I gotta go Moneyball. But I'm still waiting on Moneyball. I'm still waiting on the Oakland A's to win the World Series. That way we can change the ending and be like, and in 2032, the Oakland A's won the World Series. You're not getting this year. It's the Mets year this year. Sorry, but I'm still waiting on that Hollywood ending to happen.
One day it'll happen. John Paul says draft day is the selection there. There is that. And hey, real quick, I want to give a special shout out to Doug Ellen, the creator of Entourage. He sent me this, Tommy. He sent me this he's got a new TV show coming out. It's not going to be the Entourage reboot, but he sent me this. It's got Charlie Sheen starring it, Ramble On. He sent it over to me, and I just got to give a massive shout out to Doug Ellen.
That's awesome.
There are a lot of
looking forward to
that love Entourage that probably watch this. I know Matthew Canada loves Entourage. I'm a huge Entourage guy. I wanted to be a sports agent because of Ari Gold. So he sent this over to me, and so obviously I got to represent Ramble On. Appreciate it. Doug Ellen.
I wouldn't mind the lifestyle, but I have no desire to be a sports agent. That is a life that I'm not one to be
brutal competitive business there. And you have to manage a lot. Like, it's not just you. You have to manage and kind of oversee and help coordinate with the marketing side of things. And it says, when does Tommy get some Ramble On merchandise? Hey, Doug Ellen follows me on Twitter. He sent this over to me because I've been a big supporter of Entourage.
This comes with a check mark. This is one of those whole things comes with a check mark. You get free perks.
It's really cool. Shout out to Rufus at Home Video Solutions. Only a select few will ever understand the reference that I just made there. Season 1 opener, Entourage. Well, anyways, we have some NFL stuff to get to here today. We got some NFL news. We got some rumors, speculations building up to the NFL draft. First off, you know what? Let's take a trip down to Arizona here. The Arizona Cardinals have picked up Kyler Murray's 5th-year option, which signifies, hey, all right, we're running it with Kyler this year. Then we'll work towards a contract extension, which I think that the assurance of them picking up the contract option doesn't really change anything. Now, if they didn't pick up the 5th-year option, that'd be a little bit of a concern. But that would have been like the most shocking move in the world. They've been like, why didn't they pick up Kyler's 5th-year option? This was supposed to happen all along. So this is not a surprise that he got his option picked up here. But now, look, he's going to be working towards a contract extension. And things with Arizona and Kyler seem to be smooth sailing right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's smooth enough right now. The waves aren't too choppy, but there's still a little bit of friction. Until he gets a new contract, Kyler's still going to want that money. What I do think is interesting is the escalators in this, because he's been back-to-back in the Pro Bowl. He's making $30 million this year off that 5th-year option compared to some other quarterbacks like a Baker Mayfield or a Sam Darnold, who kind of sit in that $18 million range. This is what performance gets you. And this is some of the things. Look, Kyler Murray's agent, they're using this. Hey, the guy's performed. He's been multiple Pro Bowls. There's a reason he should probably deserve to get paid. And I'm not disagreeing with that whatsoever. He's probably not going to get the Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed contract. That's for sure. Although I think that definitely changed the market a little bit. Yeah, this helps. It was an expected move. Like, no one's surprised right now by this. Like, it would have been a surprise if they did not do it. We've seen another team do it, obviously, today with some of the news. But I think these are two completely different scenarios. This is just buying them a little more time to, hey, let's work on a contract. And if not, then, we've got them still locked up for 2 more years. And then there's potential franchise tag, things like that. The team controlled Kyler Murray for quite some time and be a little pain in the side. If they don't work on that, I still do expect that both these sides come to a mutual agreement. And Kyler Murray is going to be a long-term player for the Arizona Cardinals.
Jan Paul says his extension is next. That is the ideal hope here for Kyler Murray and company. What happened to Baker is what Kyler is trying to prevent. Rightfully so. I think there are a lot of people. I'm eager. I want to see a little bit of what Lamar Jackson's plan is. I think that, like, for him, there's been the conversation that he's completely willing to bank on himself. And even if he gets franchise tag when the time comes, that he will work, he'll even play on the franchise tag. I honestly don't know what would happen, but man, you look at this quarterback class, like you look at Kyler Murray, like these guys that are due for extensions, and thank you to the Cleveland Browns for really kind of screwing it over. But like, here's some quarterbacks in the next year, Tommy, that will need a new contract. Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray is going to be one of them. Russell Wilson will be in line for a contract extension in Denver. What does that even look like? What's going to happen with Baker Mayfield with whatever team he decides to go to? Is he really just going to end up probably being a guy who's drafted first overall, then eventually traded or released by this Cleveland team, and then gets like a 1-year deal and just goes 1 year? Like, that to me would be so insane. But it's like the rest of the league, especially going into next year's NFL draft, which is officially 365 days away to be exact. What the quarterback class coming out then? The NFL is getting younger. Teams are going for younger, more prolific guys with a little bit more upside. Baker's going to find himself in a position where it's like, how much of a market is there going to be for him? And like, what teams? Like, I don't think he's going to have his pick of the litter in terms of like going to a great team and making them even greater. I just don't see that right now.
No, I'm kind of with you too. I think the one that's really interesting me, I think you nailed it, is going to be Lamar Jackson, see what he does. Like, look, if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm betting on myself too. I know how talented I am. And I think what's interesting too is if Tua struggles, which of these quarterbacks wants to meander their way down south to Miami? Look, Lamar Jackson from Florida. This could be the potential top destination for a free agent quarterback. Man. There's a potential out there. I know everyone talking about Tom Brady. Look, Lamar Jackson, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. Stranger things have happened, but obviously this is a team in Baltimore that's absolutely built everything around him. I would expect him to stay, but I can't blame Lamar Jackson for betting on himself. Look, when it comes to Baker,
let's play devil's advocate here too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. Like, you mentioned Miami. Like, if you are Miami, let's say it doesn't work out with Tua this year, you have your choice between Tom Brady coming over. Who knows how much longer he's going to be able to play, right? He even acknowledged, like, I don't know if I have much time left. But there's that scenario there. Or do you go and try to get a guy like if Kyler somehow escapes or Lamar like decides to test the free agency market? Like, who would you choose between, like, let's say Lamar Jackson somehow became available, didn't want to come back to Baltimore. Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, and Miami. Who would you rather go with? I would go with Lamar Jackson.
Give me the winner. I think I actually might go Tom Brady. I think give me the winner. I'm trying to win now. No one has been better at winning now than Tom Brady. Long term, Lamar I think makes sense. He's going to have a longer career in the NFL from where we're starting at right now. But if I'm trying to win the Super Bowl, give me the guy that's done it more than anyone else. I think Tom Brady would make the most sense at that point.
True, but it's like Lamar with all that talent.
I'm not. No, you can't go wrong either way here. You cannot go wrong either way.
I think the goal would have to be, it's like, do you want to win? Do you want to win a game? Like, do you want to win a Super Bowl in a year or two? Like, that's got to be the thing. But
I mean, do you think Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray can they win the big game?
I think Lamar can with the right pieces around him. I think Lamar can.
Yeah, I think Lamar can also.
Kyler, I'm not so sure yet on Kyler. Like, Kyler had plays last year, Tommy, and you know this from the fantasy side and watching him. He's a magician. Like, there's times he just pinball wizard, throws it up. Like, he's a special player. But as we saw last year, like, losing D-Hop was a huge thing for him. And that impacted the Cardinals offense. But it's like,
he was also injured at times too.
Solid team. Yeah. It's like, I think that Lamar has a little bit more to work with. I think that Kyler's good. I just think that Lamar, when we talk about like maybe being on path to winning a Super Bowl, I think Lamar's closer than Kyler Murray is. But I mean, I don't know. Like, the NFL's wild. One team's only going to win each year. Like, that's,
I mean, John Paul brought up an interesting point right here too about Kingsbury being the main problem with the play calling. I think the whole thing with that, we go back to point to Rondale Moore. The way he failed to utilize him, lowest ADOT in the league, despite spending the draft capital to bring him in, the guy who seemed really fit perfectly with this Arizona style offense. So yeah, there's definitely the seats warming on Cliff Kingsbury, no question about that, because you were brought in at the same time to get but I mean at the same time, like, you were brought in for Kyler Murray, they were a package deal when they came together and threw Josh Rosen to the curb. So I think, look, the Cliff Kingsbury, they've got to win. Plain and simple. Right now, you have the question of what's going on in San Francisco. We don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be. Are they going to have Deebo Samuel? Seattle is going into a rebuild, even though they completely refuse to admit it. You're just dealing with the Rams at this point, and then the rest of the conference, like there's questions. Tampa is not as good as they were. Green Bay still has tons of questions. Outside of that, like Dallas isn't okay, but like I said, they're a team that we say the same thing. They got worse during free agency, losing some key players, not to mention Lyle Collins, Randy Gregory, all both move on. So there's still some questions there. So I mean, honestly, right now Arizona is sitting in one of the best spots they have. They started off the season last year; they were the longest undefeated team in the NFL, the last one standing at that point. They've got the talent, no question about it. They can get things working together, but Cliff Kingsbury has got to put together a proven and consistent winning track record to silence a lot of their critics.
There were some other things coming out. Allah says Raiders apparently opening up welcoming Kaepernick to the team. However, I don't trust the source. I honestly just can't see Kaepernick fitting into the Josh McDaniels system, and let alone it wouldn't make sense to bring that in, especially when you just extended Derek Carr.
Yeah, but it depends on who the backup quarterback is now, because now they no longer have Marcus Mariota, who was arguably the best backup quarterback in the NFL.
Who's their backup quarterback?
Right now, you're looking at Nick Mullins and Garrett Gilbert. I would take Colin Kaepernick.
Nick Mullins' arm is the best. There's a Twitter account that says Nick Mullins' arm is the best, and it literally tweets me if I say something like Nick Mullins' arm is better. Like, I love it. It's a great Twitter account.
It's almost like, remember when it was the play 60, and it was the play 60 or play 90. It was that kid like, I'm just loosening up my arm. Like, that's the thing I completely expect with that.
There was a meme last year where they used that, like Mac Jones has grown up now. Dude, that was perfect. That was fantastic.
I loved that. Was the perfect, like, everything coming full circle. I loved that.
They need to bring some of those types of commercials back now. I'm excited though. Like, I'm excited to see what the NFL decides to do marketing wise in the future. So there's that good news for the Arizona Cardinals on that front there. OBJ putting out some cryptic tweets here. Tommy, what did he have to say?
The thing with OBJ, it's what he said, but also what he didn't say. Because, like, he found a really good time just to interject and make sure he was still the center of attention, which, look, I want to be remembered too. I haven't signed or anything. But, yeah, he tweeted out and said, I will be back. I don't know when or where, but I will be back, which basically just said he doesn't plan on retiring, but has no idea when he's coming back or playing where. I think, obviously, the one that makes the most sense is Los Angeles Rams. I think that's where we're all expecting. The number is gone, but he can get number 13 back because I believe it's the backup quarterback. I think it's John Wolford, who's wearing, I think, number 13 right now. You can go steal 13 from him because Cam Akers decided he didn't want to pay the $500,000 fine last year and went to number 3 now this year. So he can get 13. He can get whatever he wanted. But to me, like, it's the Rams. It's the one that makes the most sense. We worked out really well in that system. They have the pieces still in place with Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson, and Cooper Kupp to still be a very dynamic offense, even though they lost Robert Woods when he went over to the Tennessee Titans. You bring in Odell Beckham Jr. when he is healthy. He's good for them for their playoff run because that was like you could not get injured later in the year. The Super Bowl is about the end of when you could do it, unless you're doing like the fourth quarter of it. So he'll be back for the timing, probably for like that playoff push, right when the Rams need him. Like I said, that's the one that just makes the most sense to me. It was just a beneficial relationship the whole way around. So yeah, I think Odell Beckham Jr. knows where he'll be back, but the when is definitely the deciding one because that's all based on his recovery.
When is the magic question? And I think, like, for him, just move to number 7, OBJ. Like, we're the number 7. You'd be an absolute dog.
It's got to be single digit.
That number.
It needs to be single digit.
I just can't, like, the 13 OBJ was, like, nostalgic with the Giants. But it's like, okay, hey, now it's like we saw number 3. And it was like, hey, it's really cool seeing OBJ in a brand new jersey. That's, not
I'm a fan of I like single digit numbers. I think if you're a playmaker, wear a single digit. Unless you're a tight end. And if you're a tight end, you wear 87. Because that's tight end wearing number 87 instantly reduces your 40 time by like 3/10.
My 40 time is, pretty. I imagine if I ran it today, I'd probably run a 4.9. Which
I think Jordan Davis is outrunning me. I'll tell you that.
No, dude, easily. I have one ACL in my knee right now, though, Tommy. But it's like my 40 back in the day when everything was official, my best was a 4.72, for a guy who's 5'10" and 185 pounds playing cornerback. Not bad, right? It's okay.
It's not bad. I got into the 4.5s, but I was pulling a hamstring getting in there.
Dude, that's the worst part is you're pulling your groin or your hamstring when running.
Yeah. Like I'm blowing something. Like I'm not meant to run for 40 yards at one time. Like
Seattle Seahawks
run and stop.
The Seattle Seahawks just about a month ago, they held a media combine with members of their media.
I saw that. Yes. And I love that.
You know what? It's like that right there. I feel like for some people, especially in media. I would love to see it. Like, I believe, like, right now in the Denver media, for me, I believe I would at least be a top 3 athlete. Look, because I don't know how I'd stack up against former Bronco Nick Ferguson. I don't know how I'd stack up against Brandon Stokely.
It's
I don't
those
know
former
what those
athletes.
guys are doing.
Yeah.
But outside of that, everybody else in the Denver media, I would smoke in 40-yard dash. I'd probably smoke in the skill competition. Like I said, I do bicep curls every day, Tommy.
That should be a thing. Dude. If you're going to call out players for how slow they run their 40 or how they didn't perform in the combine, you need to go out there on film and put your own combine out there. Hold the media accountable.
Darren Rovell, like, oh my gosh, don't even get me started with how bad that was. That was an embarrassment.
I love his video.
Like, I never ever want to hear Darren Rovell ever say anything about an athlete or athleticism ever again when he looks like his run looks like a power walk. Like,
his run makes Rich Eisen look like Usain Bolt.
Yeah, dude, I love Rich Eisen, because he runs in the suit. He's pulled his hammy a few times.
He's got full cleats on, though, and that's what I love about it. Rocks the suit with the cleats.
He's legit.
I love Rich Eisen. Not only that, but the charity, the Run Rich Run charity, the amount of good that thing has done for pediatric cancer and all this stuff. Like, it's an incredible thing. It's one of my favorite things about the whole combine cycle and the off season is what that does and the awareness that it brings. I love Rich Eisen for that.
I'm with you there. Jan Paul says, I'll run, but only if there's an ice cream truck behind the finish line.
Man, when was the last time I saw an ice cream truck? I miss those things.
Ice cream trucks are like the perfect money laundering scheme these days.
Oh, they probably are money laundering to begin with. It's like all your mattress stores. All your mattress stores are apparently allegedly to money laundering.
Seriously, that is spot on. That, like, mattresses or even like bars and things like that. Give me a taco truck. Don't even get me started on tacos, dude. I got to live healthy, and I want a taco so bad. I've been craving tacos, Tommy.
I could kill some tacos. I was going to do tacos last night. Settle for Chinese food. Probably still should have went tacos, but I'm never turning down crab rangoon.
You know what, my friend? You got good taste there. All right, there's some other NFL news. We talked about a fifth-year option a little bit earlier, but in New York, one quarterback, his fifth-year option did not get picked up, and that is Daniel Jones. I think one of the things here, Tommy, that I always like to pinpoint, anytime that a fifth-year option is not picked up, I think everybody automatically assumes, okay, this team is done with this guy. That's not the case. It's just
not necessarily.
Hey, you have to prove – this is a prove-it year for you. And we knew this for Daniel Jones, too, coming into it. 2022 – new head coach, new offensive scheme. Yeah, it's tough to do that. Daniel Jones wasn't in the best situation in New York previously with the, Pat Shurmur and obviously Joe Judge. However, and even like, Jason Garrett. However, one thing that kind of stands out for Daniel Jones here is like, hey, you got to go out and you got to ball out. I'll go back to Garrett Bowles with the Denver Broncos. They declined his fifth-year option. They did not pick that up. And that put a lot of pressure on Garrett to have one of the best seasons of his career. And you know what? He did it. Like, he rose up to the occasion, had a great season, and then got a contract extension. Teams want to be sure. Like, Daniel Jones was a first-round pick here for this New York Giants team, and unfortunately, the situations haven't been ideal for the Giants nor for Daniel Jones, especially, when you lose Saquon Barkley one of those years. That's always a hard thing to replicate. The amount of injuries at the wide receiver position in the last 2 to 3 years for this New York Giants team that they have been impacted by, it's not like all Daniel Jones' fault. Like, there's things Daniel Jones has to improve on, don't get me wrong, but I feel like this could be the final year that he gets a chance to prove it. And if he doesn't do it in New York, like, Tommy, like, what's the trajectory here for DJ? Is he going to go be a starter elsewhere? I don't know.
Could he get the same kind of treatment like a Carson Wentz is getting, where he's getting another option with a team that's still sitting there and kind of?
I think he should. Limbo? He deserves it, in my opinion. If Carson Wentz is going to get that, he should.
I mean, if Mitch Trubisky is getting with the Steelers, there's no reason that Daniel Jones can't get the same thing. Jameis Winston took a year off. Jameis Winston took a year off, essentially took a year off when he stepped from being a starting quarterback with the Tampa Buccaneers to go take that quarterback masterclass behind Drew Brees and Sean Payton at the time. So I think there's different paths for Daniel Jones, but I think he should give that next start. And like we said, it's very much a make or break year. No question about that. But if he does play well, the Giants can always franchise tag him. Like, they have other options, and this way they are not locking themselves into Daniel Jones and the guaranteed money and seeing what's happening with the Cleveland Browns and the Carolina Panthers, who are stuck with those contracts of Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and really don't know what to do with them. So I think with this one, it gives the Giants a few more possibilities on what they can do with Daniel Jones. If it succeeds, like I said, boom, franchise tag him. If he kind of is doing it again in that 2023 season, lock him up on the extension. But he's got to prove it at that point. And you brought in a head coach to try to help the maturation process of Daniel Jones and the progression of him with Brian Daboll. Don't expect the whole Josh Allen type of career trajectory, because you have to be Josh Allen to do that. Although Brian Daboll gets a ton of credit, and rightfully so. fantastic coach. I'm glad to see him getting that head coaching shot right now with the Giants. So we should see, I hope for, a more improved Daniel Jones, assuming we're looking at a better offensive line play, which helps him keep away from some of those strip sacks. Fumbles have been a horrible part of his game throughout his entire career, and turnovers. Limit down some of those drives, stopping momentum, killing plays. Get healthy on the perimeter. I know it's obviously not the case necessarily for Sterling Shepard right now, but you still got Kadarius Toney on the roster as of now. You've still got Kenny Galladay on here too, so they have a couple other options. Like I said, it's health. Got to surround him with talent. Hopefully Saquon Barkley stays healthy, and then Brian Daboll kind of helps get the next level of Daniel Jones, get him a little bit of stability in this team. If he proves something, great. If not, then it is a open workout essentially for all 31 other teams who could potentially be in the market for Daniel Jones maybe after this season concludes.
It's going to be a wild ride here this offseason. We'll see how things go here for the New York Giants. I do remember there was a point in this offseason where there were some rumors about maybe Saquon Barkley being available for trade at the right price. And then suddenly reports came out saying, this is not true. We're not going to get rid of Saquon, which it would just be really wild, especially in this.
There's no point to get rid of Saquon right now.
Like, how much can Brian Daboll open up with the run game, right? I know the run game in Buffalo has been a wildly inconsistent issue. I don't know if that had to do with, like, talent or lack thereof, or if it was scheme relative. Do we feel like was it a little bit of both?
I think, honestly, they whiffed on Zach Moss. I think that's one thing, to be honest, too. I don't think he was necessarily the guy they thought he was going to be coming out of Utah, but I was never really necessarily high on him to begin with. And I think it's just, look, you've got Josh Allen on this team. The running game doesn't need to be the focal point. And so it's always going to be a little bit more of a committee approach. And once you get inside the red zone, who wants to run the ball? Josh Allen. Like, he can run that ball anytime he wants to. Yep. And they found success last year, especially those last 4 weeks of the season where Devin Singletary, really took off. They kind of saw, hey, when we commit to a singular back, it works. So they're a team that kind of tends to go more with the committee approach. I think we'll see Duke Johnson get used a little bit more in Buffalo this year. But I think it's just more schematically more than anything. They want to run a ton of 4 wide receiver sets, open up the backfield, which in turn kind of hurts the rushing lanes for some of these guys. You're not coming in here running, a power formation. We're going to load one side of the offensive line, just run the ball down someone's throats like what the Cleveland Browns do. That's just not their style of play. I think we can see a better running game out of New York, but the offensive line's got to pick up in order for that to happen. And also, obviously, look, Saquon Barkley's got to stay healthy. We know the talent's there. We saw it his rookie year. You just got to put it together.
Jan Paul makes a great point. I think the Giants' issue is not talent, but culture, and Daboll could come in and help them win again, which, like, the culture under Joe Judge.
Great point.
I mean, even like under Pat Shermer, the culture was so inconsistent. Like, there was a disconnect between players and the coaching staff. And then when Joe Judge came in, there was a wild disconnect. I mean, guys fighting at training camp, Joe Judge making this old school approach, making them do Oklahomas and stuff like that, ending practice. That was a little odd there because that
doesn't work in the NFL. It doesn't.
You can't treat grown ass men like that. Like,
that was kind of the whole thing with Jim Harbaugh potentially coming back to the NFL. Like, his coaching style kind of it worked itself out with the players in San Francisco, despite winning. Like, you could only talk like that so many times. These grown ass men who are probably going to be around longer than you are, and are also getting paid more. Like, these are not college style players. So you have to treat all these guys a bit differently when you get into the NFL. So when you're sitting here, we're gassing guys out. We're running 40s. We're doing up downs like we're Herman Boone back on Remember the Titans. Like, that doesn't necessarily work in the NFL. So you got to change the way you coach.
Look at that. Doug Ellen quote tweeting the Ramble On shirt and the hat. Look at that. Entourage.
There you go.
Maybe I could get a cameo when the Entourage reboot happens. Tommy, you and I should get a cameo in there. You and I should get a cameo in there as if we're talking about something, like breaking something down in the news. That might be a really cool angle we can hit on in the future there. But anyway,
if you want to watch your Rotten Tomatoes score go down, that's when you put me into it. Outside of that, I will sit back with my popcorn and watch.
I feel like you would improve Rotten Tomatoes scores. Honestly, there's a people can't really see the real Tommy Garrett here on air because it's funny and it's something that's not suitable here that we, you and I have a lot of conversations, but it's like for all this, it would be very different. Like,
you got to be professional at times, but I mean, me well as anyone. I just speak in nothing but sarcasm and curse words. Like, I struggle with English. Like, I paid people to write my papers back when in high school, yet I make my living as a writer. Make sense of that one. I can't.
Jan Paul makes a great point here. It's a different generation. These guys need to have a connection with the coaches. Players love Cliff, so that's why he got his extension. And I'll touch on this to a point too. For any new coach, and I'm liking what I'm seeing with Nathaniel Hackett, his defensive coordinator, Giro Evero, with all these coming into the Broncos, one thing that they talked about is like, hey, The real teaching begins after a relationship has been built with these guys. That's when the real learning begins, because you can't come in. Like, imagine if like you or I, Tommy, we got told like, hey, you're going to go to this meeting room and you're going to teach and you're going to lead a conference with like 20 of these people here. Going into it, people don't know who the heck you are. So it's like, are you going to go lead a conference? Like, that's why they always have icebreakers when you go to a presentation, or if you have like some sort of like team building thing and you don't know anybody there, they open things up with icebreakers, because it's,
it's called happy hour at the bar beforehand.
Okay. All right. That would be an ideal way to do it. But you can't come in and try to teach things and try to tell people what to do without having this relationship. Like,
relationships are everything. NFL is just a microcosm of society.
Yep.
Guys, personalities, you have to have the right personality. You have to buy into a mentality. You've got to be a team player, and you've got to build trust through relationships. Like, like I said, it's literally just a microcosm of reality at this point.
Yep. The Broncos 3-team rules, according to Nathaniel Hackett: team first, be on time, no excuses. Like that's it. And they have these mantras they live by, but it's like, players want to feel connected with. Like, not everything, like, we know the NFL is a business, but not everything has to be treated business-like all the time. Like, there's a time and a place. Like, when you're on the practice field, flip the switch, right? Well, like, when you're working and you're in a game, there's a switch that gets flipped. But it's like, in between that, in meeting rooms, there's room for guys to have fun, to joke around. That's how you build camaraderie. That's how you build chemistry with one another. If you treat everything like a business so much all the time, that's where morale starts to dip down a little bit, because it kind of takes away the humanization aspect of it. And I know this because I have a psychology degree. You know, I don't know if that means anything in today's world, but it's like, it's super important. Like, you can't just tell people what to do without having that. It's like, you can't joke with people that don't know you. Like, for example, like for me, like, there's certain people, like Outlaw can joke with me because Outlaw and I have this relationship equity that's been built, right? You and I can joke with each other because we have that equity that's been built. But let's say some random dude jumps on here and cracks jokes at you and I. We're not going to probably perceive it in a fun manner way that person probably is doing it, because of the fact that we don't know who the hell the guy is. So
if you're going to make a joke, at least be creative with it. Like, bring something original. That's my only complaint.
We'll see how everything pans out here, though. But let's get into some NFL draft rumblings leading up to all the.
There is a draft today, right? I was going to say there's something going on
between like NFL news happening, the NFL draft. There's a lot going on, but it's like, okay, hey, the NFL draft this year, interesting enough, held in Las Vegas. No, it's not held inside, but they might have to move inside, because apparently during this time of the year, you get the winds that come in from the coast and the upper mountain ranges that push through the valley. And they had 25-mile-per-hour gusts, so they've had to move some stuff inside. But it's like, they're on the water. Like, the NFL draft is on the water.
I'm here for the chaos. Like, I've said this multiple times. They're still expecting like 20-mile-an-hour winds or whatever throughout the day, 25 plus. Like, could you imagine if all of a sudden the wind gust catches like the sets and all that stuff? I would just lose my mind if that absolutely happened.
Is it safe to do that, though? Like,
screw it. What's the worst that could happen?
I feel like that would be a pain to be able to like be on this floating, crevice, whatever it may be, this floating device,
floating stage.
And all of a sudden there's wind. Like, isn't that like a health hazard? Like, I don't know.
What's life without a little bit of risk? Like, I'm already in Vegas. Like, screw it. Like, let's add a little something else into it. Like, the water's not that deep. You're not going to drown. Like, it's the Bellagio.
Well, I mean, you can drown within half an inch of water. Like,
okay, do you want to keep talking? You're literally just turning into ESPN? Like, hey, let's talk about the bad things right now, all the sad things that can happen.
Oh man, take a dip into the Bellagio fountains. Okay, how about this? Is there like an NFL draft prop bet that the first overall pick jumps in the water? Like,
there was actually when it first got announced that the draft was going to be in Vegas, there were actual prop bets on whether or not someone would fall into the water at some point, whether it be a media, whether Roger Goodell, a person, whether, because there was always the talk about them boating people to the stage back and forth and things like that. So there was actually some props that are going on about whether or not someone would end up in the drink.
Thank God Pat McAfee's not there, because we know he'd probably jump into the water off the fountain too.
Allegedly. He allegedly went swimming in the canal, but he did do the belly flop when he was at Baylor on College Game Day.
That was awesome.
In a suit that I can't afford, which is just a baller move.
And now he just wears tank tops. Like, he's got a whole closet full of the same tank tops. And everyone's like, oh, do you ever wash your shirt?
Do you know how nice that is when you don't have to wake up in the morning and wonder what you're going to wear? Like, sometimes when you're told what you need to wear, or you just fit into one brand, it takes so much relief out of you at that point. Like, I don't have to worry about it.
That's me. So here's the thing. I have like 8 or 9 polos that are the same exact polo. Some of them different colors. Like, I have like 3 each of the same color. And my fiance's like, didn't you wear that yesterday, 2 days ago? I'm like, no, this is my other one. She's like, how many do you need? I'm like, a lot, because I want to simplify things a little bit. I have a specific palate, I would have to say, when it comes to shirts and everything.
The thing with polo is like I can't button them up too high because I just feel like I'm being like choked by a really weak guy. Like I can't do that. I gotta have my neck free.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's why you got to do the 2 buttons down. Like if you have all your buttons buttoned up, then I don't know what you're doing there. Like
I'm buttoning it like all the way down, like
2 buttons. Shirt. Like you got to at least have 2 button minimum buttoned. Like
I'm showing skin.
Like, not there. You have to show like the little V-neck part on the chest there. That's the important thing about that for any of you. Look, you're fashion icon, Tommy. I'd expect you to know this already.
I'm trying to get free drinks at the bar. Like I don't care who pays for it at that point.
Well, could there be any trades here at the early parts of round 1 of the 2022 NFL Draft here tonight? Well, the Houston Texans, according to Adam Schefter, are looking to potentially trade. And it says here, Houston picks at number 3, but the Texans have also been exploring a trade back up for a second top 10 pick per league sources. If the right player's there, the Texans are trying to position themselves to move their second first-round pick at number 13 to go get him. So the plan right now is the Texans are looking to stay where they're at currently in the first part. Now it's that back end number 13 pick that they're looking to hopefully trade, like swap with somebody so they can move up to take a guy potentially. I think a lot will be contingent here, Tommy. If they take cornerback first, then we can almost assume that the second guy that they probably want to take is offensive tackle. Or if it's offensive tackle first, cornerback is probably the second player they look to aim to take there to move up with. But it's like at this point, what team, like, would they swap with the Jets? Like, is that something that the Jets would want to do? I don't think that's something that the New York Jets would potentially do. But then again, the NFL draft is very interesting.
Yeah, I don't particularly know right now. I mean, I know like Casario had talked about this in the press conference last week about them being potentially in the market to make a move. So this isn't exactly like breaking news, but it's good to refresh on that. It is still in the conversation. Like I said, it all comes down to what happens in number 1. I mean, if someone slides, then yeah, if 1 and 2 slide and you're looking at, hey, if Kayvon Thibodeau is sitting there at number 3, like, do you take a shot on that? Could make sense.
I like it if you really love him.
I mean, it sounds like he's going to be there though, because it sounds like Walker and Hudson are going first. So I think that makes some sense there. But I know when we did our mock draft, we went with we go Evan Neal, I believe, or did we go Icky?
We went Icky.
Yeah, we went Icky on that one. So I think offensive tackle makes sense. But the other day, Lovie Smith was out there talking about how cornerback is on the market, and a lot of people are kind of starting to link them to a Derek Stingley Jr., which is really interesting. He's kind of one of the more intriguing names of this draft. So if they go corner early, whether it's a Stingley or Sauce Gardner, then I think it would make sense to kind of come back in later on if you don't think one of those tackles could be there, trade back in. So I think that would be the 2 different plays you would make. Like, unless someone just drastically falls we weren't expecting, because this isn't a draft I think teams are necessarily trying to trade up. Like, more than anything, you're trying to trade back. I guess my question would be, like, who the Texans would want to try to make that trade up with. Like I said, do they do it with the Jets and they're at 10? That's a possibility. The Commanders at 7? The Giants at 7 could make sense, but I think the Giants have a chance coming out there with an absolute haul in this draft, given the way some of these mock drafts have been. Like, I think they're in a great spot where they might not want to trade back and they can kind of let the draft come to them. The Commanders at 11, I could see that one potentially. Like I said, it all depends on what you're trying to go up there and get. Because even if we're looking at like the offensive tackles, I mean, you're expecting one of like an Icky, Evan Neal, or maybe a Charles Cross to fall at that point. You're hoping. With 2 of those guys potentially probably going early, I think we're still pegging Cross with the Carolina Panthers is the one they seem to be most infatuated with, all based on reports. So it's like I said, it's curious who they would want to trade up for. Like I said, to me, it seems like most teams are trying to trade back. I know Seattle is another team that was discussed earlier today. Through a lot of reports, they are a team we're looking at a potential want to move back and try to acquire picks. Because you got pick 9 right now for Seattle, and then they have 40 and 41. But it's like I said, they're not admitting they're in a rebuild, but they pretty much are in a rebuild right now, if we're being honest with them.
So you're telling me no one knows exactly what's going to happen in the 2022 NFL draft?
Shocker. What a shock.
Wow.
I mean, what if that's a spot where we can see like the Green Bay Packers trade up? Because there is talk. I know Schrags today, he was on PMS. And they're saying, look, if you want one of these top receivers, you need to be inside that top 12. They're expecting the wide receivers to fly off the board. And by the top ones, we're saying the
who did we have?
Garrett we're saying, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams,
Drake London,
Chris Olave, and Drake London. Those are the top 4. Then you have a teardrop down to the Jahan Dotson and Treylon Burks range, and then another drop down to like to the George Pickens, Christian Watson kind of range. So if you're wanting one of those top 4 guys, we can see those guys flying off the board, similar to what we saw last year. So yeah, I think that's where the Green Bay Packers have a chance to move up if they want to. They have the capital to do so, because I could not imagine the fallout in Green Bay and with Aaron Rodgers if you come out of this draft without getting a top tier wide receiver talent. Like, you can't leave this and go edge rusher and tackle. Like, I get their needs, but you've got to do something with and get Aaron Rodgers a weapon, like plain and simple. Like, there are guys later on in the draft, don't get me wrong, like at 53, if Christian Watson is still sitting there, yeah, I'm taking that all day long. But you've got the ammo in the first to where you can make a significant play to move back up a little sooner if you think you want one of those receivers, maybe getting ahead of a New Orleans Saints who are trying to move up. You're not going to get above the Atlanta Falcons, who are a team we're projecting who could want to go with a receiver. Like, if Kayvon Thibodeau is not there, then I think Garrett Wilson there makes a ton of sense. We know Washington would be in play. They're very much looking in the line of, look, if Kyle Hamilton isn't there, then I think you're looking at like a Garrett Wilson, Drake London combination on that spot. We know the Jets are in play at that point too, with what happens at number 4. If they go Sauce, potentially if he's sitting there, which is kind of seems to be a running projected theme on that one. And then at 11, I know Drake London or Jameson Williams have been in play on that one too, because there's several teams who are kind of looking for that number 2, or it's something like with the Atlanta Falcons, that number 1, because Olamide Zaccheaus doesn't exactly push the needle as that number 1. So, like, it's very much who you're trying to trade up in front of if you think they're looking at the same position of need.
We have a few more topics to talk about on today's episode, PFN Daily. Tommy, which NFL team could ruin the draft here in the early parts of the game? Like,
I guess define ruin. Like, are we saying they just make the bad pick?
Look, I mean, I think it could be a double-edged sword, like makes a bad pick or makes a pick that really screws with the team who really wanted a player and forces them to like maybe trade back.
Yeah.
Or force a team to trade up. Like, maybe to a sense, like what we talked about just, a couple months ago here on the show, the situation with San Francisco and Chicago, I believe it was back in 2017, the 2017 NFL draft, if I'm not mistaken.
It was the Mitch Trubisky pick, where they traded up thinking that they were looking for someone else, right?
They fleeced him just to move one spot. Like, that was absolute brilliant work there by San Francisco and John Lynch in his first ever draft as the GM for the 49ers. Which teams do we feel like could do that? Let me pull up the mock draft here once again, just so we can have a little bit of an idea as to how it goes. So
the two teams I look at, and it's based off, I'm just uncertain of what they're trying to do as an organization, Seattle and Carolina, because they're also early enough in the draft to where whatever move they make could have a massive ripple effect. Do Carolina, are they in play from Malik Willis? Because if they take Malik Willis at 6, that's going to change the thing for a lot of other teams.
That will
for like for the
draft.
Pittsburgh Steelers, who we could see being a team either moving up to try to get Malik Willis, or if he falls to them, my God, look, they're dancing in the Steel City. Iron City beer is flowing through the rivers of the Allegheny at that point, if you can bring in Malik Willis.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, Seattle, they're a team. What do? Do they try to stay in their spot where they're at? Do they try to move back? Could we see them being the team that takes Desmond Ridder as the number 2 quarterback in this draft? I feel like that would be a bit of a surprise to some people.
You never know, Jared. Never know. One thing we've learned about the NFL draft is believe nothing that you hear and only half of what you see.
Yeah, and see, that's the point. We're not projecting the Carolina Panthers to take a quarterback. This is just who could make the move that would either ruin the draft or surprise all of us. Given that this is still a position of need, it is a team that has a very uncertain direction. You don't have a quarterback, and you have a coach that is on the hot seat right now, and Matt Rule. It's just one of those ones where I can kind of piece it all together and say, yeah, possibly I could see this happening. I don't think they should. I don't think they do it. But is there a possibility where this does happen? Yeah. Look at the NFL offseason that we've had so far this year. I'm not writing a damn thing off at this point. Plain and simple.
I'm with you. I feel like Carolina, if they were to take a quarterback, if they were to take Malik Willis, I think would absolutely impact the rest of the draft. Now, can you make the argument, like, if the Detroit Lions take Malik Willis, does that ruin the draft? I mean, essentially, I don't know, because I think that there was some talk like, hey, it could be Malik, but man,
I would be surprised, because that means I think for me, it would be a surprise. I wouldn't hate it. Like I said, I mean, I've been on the Malik Willis train for quite some time, because I think he has the highest ceiling pretty much any player in this draft class. I think he could be a fantastic quarterback. I am fully bought into what I think Malik Willis can be in the NFL. Completely unproven, don't get me wrong. And if you're looking for a player who's going to help you win right now, Aiden Hutchinson or Tavon Walker, like, you take one of those guys and you walk home very happy, because knowing that you still have the pick coming up at 32. And if you want to take your quarterback, take Desmond Ridder right there, pick 32, if you feel so inclined.
Yeah.
There's just better ways to probably use that number 2 pick this year. It's still a possibility. Don't get me wrong. I said I'm not writing anything out. I just don't feel like Dan Campbell is wanting to take that risk with a Malik Willis. We know, say, if we're not that great this year, we can attack that position next year in the draft or free agency. Give me a difference maker right now. So I would be surprised if Detroit did that.
Which teams in the NFL do we think are going to trade up here in round number 1? My first inclination, New Orleans Saints would probably be one of them. Could the Chargers look to trade up again?
I don't think the Chargers do.
Chiefs? The Chiefs could be a team. Green Bay.
I think the Chiefs are going to make moves. I know it was Trey Wingo, last week, where he brought this up and said the same thing. I think it was completely right. Look, the Kansas City Chiefs, you've got 12 picks. You're not spending all these picks. You have multiple picks in the first, second, third, and fourth round. You have ammunition to move around. So the Kansas City Chiefs will be wheeling and dealing, I would expect, throughout this draft. Do they go early and try to move one of those first and move up? Potentially. It all depends on what you're trying to go for. Like I said, we've seen several different mock drafts are kind of staying in range. You've got a wide receiver falling to them, maybe potentially in a Jahan Dotson, which is interesting because he kind of plays that Juice Smith-Schuster role, so we'll kind of see, but I think he's got a little more juice. I don't know. Boye Mafe is the edge rusher we see talked about a ton with the Kansas City Chiefs because they never did bring back Melvin Ingram. Scene is another guy that makes a little bit of sense going cornerback. I can see that one as well, but you're going to have a hard time trading up to the point where someone like a Derek Stingley or Sauce Gardner falls to. So at that point, you're kind of looking more towards like a Kyer Elam, the cornerback out of Florida. I think that one makes a ton of sense. I don't think Trent McDuffie would be on the board for them anymore at that point. So there are potential for the Chiefs to move. I like the idea with the Saints.
I can see
if Olave, I think Chris Olave is the one they're really wanting in Kansas City. If Olave falls them to one of their first 2 picks, that makes a ton of sense because it's a guy you want and don't have to trade up for. But if concerned he's going to go, I can see them moving up for it. Like I said, I think Green Bay is the other one where, like, yeah, Green Bay has the ammo, they have the need, and look, if you want a wide receiver, trade up early. So I think those are some of the teams that I'm looking at right now.
Jared Patterson says possible Panthers trade. I heard. We're hearing a lot today, Tommy.
I love today just because of all this wild speculation. So yeah.
I could
Panthers,
honestly see a situation too if Kansas City wants to trade up. Who would they try to trade ahead? I feel like they try to trade ahead maybe of the Chargers. Like, could they maybe trade the 16 and swap one of their picks? Is the New Orleans Saints okay with picking at 19 and then maybe picking at 29 to swap? Like if they did that.
Yeah, that's a possibility. That's a possibility.
He said, I know you don't got Hall in there, not Kenneth Walker. Hey, that is the reason that
I would not be surprised if
Breece
Kenneth
Hall
Walker
is
went
there is because it just this was based on what we've been hearing and seeing from reports that the Buffalo Bills love Breece Hall. Not sure how much smokescreen that is. And obviously, I think some of the reports said, hey, like in the time of smokescreen season, there seems to be fire with this one.
Well, when we made that pick also, we were like, okay, do we want to go with the pick we think could happen or do we want to go chaos? Exactly. And we kind of went with a pick that is a little more the chaotic one, which is Breece Hall. Are there better ways to spend that draft pick than doing it with a running back? Yeah, probably. Let's all be honest. They could go with a cornerback. They could go with Dax Hill. They can make there's other moves that they can make that would help the Buffalo Bills out right now. They don't have to go Breece Hall. And I would not be surprised if Kenneth Walker is the first running back drafted. I think he's the best pure rusher of this class. Like I said, if you took away his rushing yards and only went with Kenneth Walker's yards after contact, he would have been 12th in the NCAA last year in rushing yards. Contact balance is phenomenal. Vision is phenomenal. His burst, top notch. His very first play from scrimmage when he was at Michigan State after transferring from Wake Forest was against Northwestern. 75-yard house call. The guy's got plenty of juice. No question about it. There's just the concerns that people don't know. Can he be a true 3-down back in his receiving skill set? I don't question it personally. The guy came into college with more receiving yards coming out of high school than Breece Hall did. Like he can catch the ball, but there is also a difference in being a pass catching back and a receiving weapon. It's something I talk about several different times when I'm doing my player profile studies and I'm doing my film grading analysis. Like, can you be split out? Can you be moved outside of the game? Can you run those angle routes, those Texas routes that have become so prevalent in the NFL through guys like Chris McCaffrey and Austin Eckler and Alvin Kamara? Getting your running back in space, in the open field like a Najee Harris, that's a critical part of the NFL right in their current games in the game scripts. So I think Kenneth Walker can absolutely do that. He just hasn't shown it yet. So the safer pick in the eyes of many would be Breece Hall over Kenneth Walker. Although, like I said, I think Kenneth Walker could be sensational in the NFL. And if he was the first running back selected, I would not be surprised.
Is Ian watching? I miss him. Where's he been? He's sleeping right now.
He's sleeping. He's catching
for the
honestly,
NFL draft here tonight.
If you work at NFL media and you can take a nap right now, do it. Seriously, you're going to need it right now because it's going to be a grind these next 3 days. So this is the one time I'll give Ian a pass. But when Roger Goodell's up there on that podium, I need your eyes open.
Awake. Yeah, you got to be awake. Jared Patterson said that he heard that from someone who works in the ticket operation office. I'm not sure how much information those people actually get. But then
what
again,
was the trade again?
The trade would have been something along the lines here. Says Panthers, Eagles. Panthers 15, 51, and 101. Andre Dillard. Eagles gets picked 6. And Robbie Anderson. I feel like that's way too much for the Panthers to give up.
I don't see the Panthers giving that up personally.
And I feel like, too, this could also be one of those things, too, because during the NFL draft, you know what happens? Organizations want to find out who the leaks are in their organization, so they put certain things out there, and this is how people get fired. Like, this
my thing is like the 6, you're giving up the 6th overall pick, which is the highest rated pick, and you're giving up the player in Robbie Anderson. Like, I'm not saying like Robbie Anderson's some great player. I think he's a good volume and possession catch receiver. And the Eagles do need a wide receiver. So I understand the logic of it. I just don't see that being a trade that the Panthers would want to do on their end.
It wouldn't make sense, honestly. Like, just thinking about it, that's definitely not something. And I haven't seen anything else about Robbie Anderson. I haven't seen many trade rumors being put out there about Robbie Anderson either. So,
yeah. I mean, like
usually we see somebody reputable tweet that out. I don't.
Yeah, and Jared put it back up there. So Robbie's contract is all for us, and we're trying to get rid of Robbie. Yeah. I understand that. And you do have a potential number 2. And Terrence Marshall, who did not get utilized at all last year. Like I said, you got to have a partner who wants to take on that contract of Robbie Anderson, and that's kind of going to be the issue.
Yeah, we'll see how it all pans out. Anything can happen here in the NFL draft. Let's go now to like position odds, like the over-unders. DraftKings. Tommy, do you have them up right now?
I can pull them up, actually, yes.
So one of the cool things, too, and Tommy and I were going to talk about this, we're going to go through and we're just going to give our over-under, and you can obviously follow along. You can participate here in the YouTube comment section as well during the live chat as we're doing this. We're just basically an overview on the position odds, how many players will be taking the over and under. So we'll get what the line is for certain positions. Tommy and I will say, okay, I'm going to go with the over. I'm going to go with the under here. So let's pull it up right here according to DraftKings Sportsbook. If it can load up here.
Yeah, as of right now, the one thing I did notice that they omitted was linebackers or edge rushers.
Yeah.
So they don't have any. I think the reason for that is it's dependent on the teams on how they want to list players, because there is a differentiation in, okay, is he an outside linebacker or is he an edge rusher? So that's why we don't see defensive linemen or linebackers listed. I think it's because no one's ever entirely sure how someone will be labeled. Someone like a Rashawn Gary makes a ton of sense like that. A guy who's really just more like a defensive lineman, a pass rusher, but is listed as a linebacker. So there's some things like that, and it keeps them kind of getting in trouble like that when they have to try to make the decision on was this actually correct or not when they need to pay out.
It's a great point there. So let's get to some of the odds here right now. According to DraftKings Sportsbook, the total of first-round cornerbacks drafted in the first round here in today's NFL draft, it is set at 4.5 here.
Yeah.
Tommy, are we going under 4.5? Are we going over 4.5 when it comes to cornerback here?
Man, I hate this because I always think that's a really solid number. I think we see 4 on the minimum. I do. I think it's Booth. We see Stingley go. I think Booth, Stingley, Gardner, and Kyer Elam. I think Trent McDuffie goes. I will take the over. I think we see 5 go.
I'm going to go with the under. I think we see 4 go.
Who doesn't make it?
I feel like it's debatable, and I think Andrew Booth Jr. might be one of those not late first rounds. Either he'll be late first round, or I think he might go in the early second round part of the NFL draft. Wouldn't be surprised, like between he and Kyer Elam, if one of those guys suddenly weren't first round picks. But I think that would be my 4. Like, I think there's going to be 4.
I think for me, I'm leaning the over just because I'm going to also be taking one of the unders when we get to the quarterback position.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
It's like if someone moves up, someone has to move down. The same thing for these positions. If you think someone's going to go over, someone's got to go under. For me, I feel it's going to be heavy edge rushers. It's going to be heavy offensive tackles, wide receivers, and corners. Those are kind of the 4 positions I'm really leaning on towards with this draft. And honestly, it kind of makes sense based on a lot of these odds.
Well, let's go now. Total first-round offensive lineman drafted. The total is set at 7.5 here.
Oof.
Are you taking the under or are you taking the over here?
I mean, I'm taking 4 automatically with Evan Neal, Ekwonu, Cross, and Penning. Those are easy to lock in. I think the question for me comes on Linderbaum. Does he fall? I know in our mock draft, we have
Zion
Linderbaum
Johnson,
going to
too.
the Bengals. I think that one makes sense. There's 5. Zion Johnson
would be 6.
Yeah, Zion Johnson would be 6.
Is that all we have?
I think Kenyon Green is a potential to move up in there. That would be 7. And then it falls on, do you think Tyler Smith makes it into the first round?
I'm smashing the under here.
I'm going to take the under as well. If I'm having to stretch this far, I think 7 will probably be where it tops out at, but I do lean the under on the offensive lineman.
Okay, he says over, don't sleep on Kyler Gordon, over on offensive lineman. And it'll be very surprising to see the least if that's the thing. I think the odds right there too, if you select the over, where'd my – see, this is why we can't have nice things. Tell me my tab disappeared. If you take the over, the odds right there are at plus 140 according to DraftKings Sportsbook. So,
yeah,
interesting.
So the odds are technical. They're wanting you to take the over on that one. They're wanting you to take the over.
It's going to be interesting. Total first round quarterbacks drafted. It's set at 2.5 here, Tommy.
Yeah.
Minus
I'm going
115 odds for under. It's kind of the same even for over. So it's
they're both they both have the over under set at 115. Yeah. I think it just kind of leads to some of the uncertainty that we have in this draft. And quite frankly, you're hearing tons of different opinions on whether or not someone like Kenny Pickett could go. Like, did the Tennessee Titans decide to go in and take literally Ryan Tannehill 2.0 and Kenny Pickett? Do we see Desmond Ridder sneak in at pick number 32 to the Detroit Lions? I think for me, I think 2 go at max.
Under.
I am going to lean the under in this one as well at the minus 115. Like I said, I don't see it being more than Pickett, Willis, and Ridder at that point.
Ooh-wee. It's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. Who will be the first quarterback taken? We're looking forward to that. Now we're going to running backs here. Okay, now this is the intriguing one. Now, I think, what was it? Last year, this would have been money. Yeah. Like you would have won money here with Najee Harris and Travis Etienne going. Okay, so for running backs, the total is 0.5. So under, so meaning like nobody is going to get drafted round 1 at the running back position. Over half, plus 150 odds there. Like
there's a difference on this one in projection and betting. Betting wise, it makes no sense to bet the under. Minus 200 odds, that's awful. If you're doing anything, take the over at a half. So expect if you bet on a running back to be selected, you're going to give me that at plus 150 combined to minus 200. Like, there's no play for me on the under. If I'm going to bet it, I do bet it on the over, and I'm betting on the Buffalo Bills to take it.
Yep.
Realistically, do I think we end up seeing no running backs take it? I think that will be more likely. But if I'm betting, I will take the over because I see no value in the minus 200.
This is an interesting one, too. Total first-round safeties drafted. I think a lot of it's really up in the air, like Kyle Hamilton, obviously the consensus number 1 safety in this year's NFL draft. And then that's kind of near between Lewis Cine. Like, Lewis Cine has been talked about as like, hey, he could be that last pick at 32. He could be one of those surprise guys late round 1 here. This is a tough one, and it's set at 1.5 here. Are you taking the over or are you taking the under? The under will get you plus 250 odds. Where are we at? Okay, there we go.
The over is minus 360.
Yeah.
God. Okay. This is another one of those for me. Like, I want the over. I do think there will be more than one selected. I think Lewis Cine makes a ton of sense. Kyle Hamilton. I think Dax Hill makes a ton of sense also for someone like Tampa Buccaneers. You can bring Dax Hill, and he's a guy who can play safety or play corner. He did both while at Michigan, and both did very well if you just remove the clip of where George Pickens just bullied him at the line.
Tyrann Mathieu still not on an NFL team.
I know.
I guess like if you don't find a safety in this year's draft that you really like, maybe you can reach back out to Tyrann at this point.
You could. I mean, Jalen Petrie is a guy I've heard a little bit of rumors about being a sneaky guy. Yeah. Yep. I think he's a sneaky one. Like I said, I think we do see I think we see 2 or more be selected, but I'm not taking minus 360, and I'm not betting on the minus 250 just for the better odds. So I do believe that there will be more than one selected, but I'm not going to bet on it.
All right, let's talk tight ends. Oh, this is interesting. The over half is plus 450. The under half is minus 700.
Yeah, like I love Trey McBride. He is my cornerback one. I know Daniel Jeremiah. He is on the Greg Dulcich train out of UCLA. Two fantastic tight ends. I love them both. Neither are going inside the first round. Like it is what it is. Not a position that teams are really highly putting a lot of draft capital into. You can get some really good guys later on. I know Jalen Weidermeyer, he's taken a bit of a fall because it seemed like he ran his 40 both uphill and uphill going both ways. Isaiah Likely coming out of Coastal Carolina, really good guy. We've seen him build up, come out really well from a program, kind of came from nothing, all of a sudden being the ones that were like, hey, we'll play anyone, anytime, anywhere. They did the same thing against BYU. Jeremy Ruckert, a really good guy out of Ohio State, just didn't get utilized a ton. Makes a ton of sense when you look at the wide receiver weapons they have on there. And then Jelani Woods, the guy who literally reset RAS, the relative athletics score, the first ever perfect 10 for the tight end position. Like I said, if you just want to draft the most, I just want the guy who's the best athlete. Jelani Woods is a guy, and that's someone you can get way later on in the draft. So I don't see a tight end being selected inside the first round.
It'd be very shocking at this point, in my opinion here.
Yeah, Kansas City will draft that would be like shock of the draft if a tight end went early in the first round.
I'd be shocked if the Chiefs drafted a safety in round 1. I think maybe in one of the later rounds. Yeah, I could see them doing that. I don't see them doing that with any of their round 1 picks, though. I think they have more pressing needs because they have Justin Reed, they have Juan Thornhill. They're solid at safety right now. I just don't see them taking one in round 1 here.
Jared Patterson, when he said Nick Cross is a damn spot, yes, he is. Nick Cross was by far that best player on that Maryland team. So, yeah, makes a ton of sense also. I like him.
Unsure if the Chiefs will take a safety. A lot of talk about edge and wide receiver. We'll keep both first. In my opinion, if you're up to me, you should take an edge rusher and a cornerback if I am on the Kansas City Chiefs. If I had it my way.
I mean, look at what we did. We literally went Andrew Booth Jr. and Wimboy Mafe.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally gave him cornerback and edge rusher at that point. That's my two biggest concerns. You can utilize the depth later on in the draft to get a receiver if you want to. I would absolutely do that in a heartbeat. But the defense is what worries me the most with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's where they had their biggest losses. Yes, Tyreek Hill was an absolute loss, but you brought in two guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and you brought in Juju Smith-Schuster to help kind of mitigate some of that loss of production. But it's the defense that I had my biggest concern, and especially in that AFC West, where you've got to be able to stop the pass or get pressure. I'm concerned the Kansas City Chiefs are going to struggle to do either. So if I'm using those first 2 picks, I'm going heavy on defense. I'll look at wide receiver later on with one of my 2 seconds or my 2 thirds.
Be very interesting here. Now the final prop here is total first-round wide receivers drafted. Okay, it's set at 6.5 right here. The under is minus 120. The over is minus 110.
And it's at 6.5?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So we have our top 4. We know the top 4. Wilson, Williams, Olave, London.
The wild cards will be Treylon Burks, for example, like in our
Burks,
mock, and
Burks and Dotson. I think Burks and Dotson both make it inside the first round. That's 6. I'm having a hard time saying, do I see number 7 go? If I'm looking at guys who I think could be. Christian Watson will be in play.
I think he's gone inside the first round.
No, I think he's more of an early round 2 guy. Yeah. I don't think Alec Pierce, he's not making there, obviously. I think Pickens has, at that point, after those top
Pickens
4,
is the wild card here, in my
He's
opinion.
got the most talent, but it's those all-field things. It's the character things that people love to talk about. But the one thing with him, it's the immaturity on the field. Because we've seen him fight guys at different times on the field and cornerbacks get in his head. So, I'm not saying it's not a warranted talking point, but I'm also not skipping a guy who would have been the number 1 wide receiver a couple of years ago. Body control, hands catching. Like I said yesterday, George Pickens' hands are as soft as Ben Simmons. They are that good. He's one of the best players in the air. The only person I would compare him in the air with their skills at the point of the catch would be David Bell. But he's obviously slipping later in draft. So honestly, I think the lean for me right now is going to be the under 6.5, just because I don't think Christian Watson ends up making it into the first. If he does, then that would be Jahan Dotson went early, and I think Christian Watson maybe to the Kansas City Chiefs or Green Bay Packers potentially. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to lean. I'm going to take the under on the 6.5, I believe.
I just forgot we went very bold yesterday in our mock, and we had Green Bay taking 2 wide receivers.
No, we absolutely did.
Unorthodox.
Yeah. No, it's completely unorthodox.
Both those guys
completely against legit. What it's absolutely not what Gutekunst will do. Quite frankly, I don't give a damn.
Yeah,
I've watched what happened with the Green Bay Packers.
Aaron Rodgers, damn it!
I'm doing what's right for Aaron Rodgers, and damn it, I'm a shareholder. I have a say-so on what they do in the draft.
I'm glad that you're a Green Bay Packers shareholder. Hopefully, Brian Gutekunst does not watch this podcast. We'll see.
I will not be in the war room. I can guarantee you that one.
But you may receive a yellow envelope from Roger Goodell on Wednesday. So
I
be
will
prepared
get
for that there, Tommy.
Anyways. I don't get to boo Roger Goodell when he comes up on stage. That's what happens. I get fined for that.
What a conflict of interest that presents here. But folks, thank you so much for tuning in today's episode PFN Daily here on youtube.com/Pro Football Network. Just a reminder, a little bit later on tonight, check out this feed here, youtube.com/Pro Football Network, for the live show with Tony Pauline and Brett Yaris in beautiful New Jersey at some undisclosed location with a live audience. And they will be tipping the picks on the broadcast. So if you don't want to watch ESPN or NFL Network, we highly encourage you.
We will not be doing that on Twitter.
No,
tonight during round one, we will not be tipping picks on Twitter before they get announced. So social media is safe, but if you do want to follow along with that, tips will be picked on there. Picks will be tipped on there, if I can say that correctly, on the live stream, but social media will be safe. We will not be doing that. When it gets to day 3, then we'll see what happens. But at least tonight, we will not be doing that.
All right. It says tomorrow show bet for USFL. Yes, we'll recap round 1 of the NFL draft, a little bit of a look ahead at round 2 on Friday. But yes, the best matchup of the week for the USFL, the Birmingham Stallions, the eventual champions of the USFL in their first inaugural season, taking on Tommy Garrett's New Orleans Breakers. We will definitely
the number 1 team in the USFL.
Oh, I don't need, I'll look up what the power rankings said too this week. And
I was literally pulling it up right now.
Let's see. Let's see where we're at here.
I can tell you off the spot if we want to get going.
Just
at number 8, it is the Michigan Panthers. At number 7, the Pittsburgh Maulers. At number 5, Houston Gamblers. That is the New Jersey Generals at 5 at that point. Tampa Bay has fallen down to 4. Philadelphia is number 3. The Birmingham Stallions come in at number 2 behind the best team in the USFL and best team in USFL history, New Orleans Breakers.
All right, RJ Young, you're invited to the cookout.
You happy now?
That's much more love and praise. However, this week too, it's all winner takes number 1. So Birmingham preparing that spot for the top seat in the power rankings. I'm excited about that. There we go. You know what? Outlaw and I are days made. You got the battle between the number 1 and number 2 team, and obviously we'll find out who the true number 1 is on Saturday with the Birmingham Stallions primetime action on Saturday. Make sure you tune your dials there. I think it's on Fox Sports 1. If not,
we'll figure it out. We'll go over that tomorrow.
Yeah. Anyways, folks, hey, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the NFL draft tonight.
Good luck tonight.
Please tweet us on Twitter at PFN365 with what you will be ordering for eating while watching the NFL draft. Are you ordering wings? Are you ordering pizza? Are you making stuff? Make sure you take a snapshot picture of your food while you're watching the NFL draft. Send it to us on Twitter at PFN365, hashtag PFN Daily. Make sure you get in the conversation as well. Enjoy the NFL draft, folks. We appreciate it so much. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of the show.